This is just an hour of me talking about Grey Knights. Hello, welcome to One Last Blade. Today, I'm going to be doing one of the most oft requested things on my channel, which is a unit breakdown of every unit in the Grey Knights Codex. So, that's what I'm going to do today. That's incredibly embarrassing. That's the wrong codex. One second. The Grey Knights Codex. Not Imperial Knights. Yeah, I'm going to go through and give my thoughts on the various units. Give some thoughts based on flavor, just how they look, how cool I think they are, and also, like, viability in a competitive sense. Not that I'm any sort of competitive expert with Grey Knights, but if I would run them or not, whether or not I think they're good as far as 9th edition is concerned. Overall, I'll be referencing the latest rules possible as its relevance to Grey Knights. And eventually, we're going to get a new codex at some point. And that's going to be really rad when that finally happens. Also, this is an aside, but the art in this book is super rad. Look at how cool that Dreadnought is. Nobody else has a Dreadnought like that. He's got a psychic shield and he's blasting something away. A little iron halo on him. It's very cool. Units in the Grey Knights Codex. So, first off, starting out with Lord Kaldor Drago. I have a Drago painted up. I got him for free from a coworker when I first got into the game years ago. Some people know that I'm not really into the proprietary characters, like the named characters. It's not really my jam. I don't know. There's just a level of... Whenever I'm playing Warhammer, I want the game to be mine, if you know what I mean. Like, I want everything on the table to represent something that I'm excited about, something that I've created, and something like a story that I'm telling with characters that are important to me. And whenever I put a named character on the table, like, it becomes Kaldor Drago's story. It becomes Grandmaster Voldis' story. It is no longer my character's story. It's not Brother Captain Ecosiel or Grandmaster Samandis or Inquisitor Valencia's story. It has to be about this big, important character to the lore who travels through the warp. Drago is interesting because I think he is objectively red, but there's a lot of, like, people think of him as this big, unstoppable Mary Sue character who's going to just slay every demon he comes across, and the warp is a place where human beings can't live, but he lives there, and he kills every demon he comes across. But I think his whole, like, curse to be stuck in the warp and only appearing when he's absolutely needed is kind of cool. And on the table, he represents that, obviously, with being able to deep strike. Even if he wasn't a Terminator, I think he'd be able to deep strike. But he hits like a fucking tank, and God, anything he touches just dies. I once played a game with him against Tau, and I forget exactly what objective it was. It was early in 8th edition, and Drago was on the objective in the center of the battlefield, and it got to the point where we needed to, like, both sides needed to grab that objective, and he had units of fire warriors nearby my opponent, so he kept charging for 2 or 3 turns. He kept charging fire warriors at Drago, just hoping one of them might live, just so he can get one guy there and get objective secured and take the objective from me. And every turn, Drago would tank whatever fire came in from his broadsides and from his hammerheads. Drago's 3-up save and his 3-up invuln save and his 2-up armor save would tank everything that was thrown at him, and then my opponent would just charge fire warriors at him, and Drago would destroy them. And I won that game because Drago could not be moved from that point. So I think it's really hard to argue Drago's, like, efficacy as a unit and a beatstick and a table dominator. Well, now that I'm thinking about it, with the changes to Storm Shields, I wonder if that's the same thing. He's weaker to big, like, tank-killing weapons now. I mean, he's still got 7 wounds. He's still got a 2-up save. With the Storm Shield in cover, he'll have a 0-up save against bigger weapons, but he's better against small arms fire now, but the 4-up invuln, I don't think it's as necessary. I don't think it's as good, I should say, as it used to be. Other characters do the same job. He's cool, though, but I don't think I'm going to run him in the future. Grandmaster Voldis. Now, I am mostly alone amongst the Grey Knight community in this, but I have no desire to run Voldus for the aforementioned reason that I just don't like running like named characters in my lists. I like to keep my lists full of my characters and my guys. Voldus is objectively incredible. Like, there's no getting around that. He is phenomenal for the points that he costs. I just don't want to run him. I don't have a good reason for that aside from narrative. From what I understand, his being able to cast 3 and deny 3 is just astounding. He fills the role of a Librarian and a Grandmaster at the same time, which makes sense. But I can't speak to him. I can't speak to him up or down. The next unit on the list is Grandmasters, of which I have a couple. I also think I am like the only person who runs just on-foot Grandmasters. But I have to, because the leader of my brotherhood, the 7th Brotherhood, is Grandmaster Samandis, and I'm very proud of how his model looks, and he's awesome, and I've had him wreck face on field before I've had him fall, but he has such an intimate relationship with all of my friends' characters. Voldus would be a better choice to bring tactically, but Grandmasters are super cool. This is the problem. I am such a narrative player, I think, at heart. The Grandmaster, 2 powers is still really good to cast. I think he only does 1 deny, right? 1 deny, yeah. Huh. That's so much worse than Voldus. But I mean, again, he's really rad. I've never run a Grandmaster with any sort of the special weapons on their arms because it feels like a waste of points to me. 4 extra shots from a Psycan is not going to do much, honestly. Typically, I'll run my Grandmasters deep striking with some other units, like a squad of Paladins or a couple squads of Terminators or some Dreadnoughts. He's there to make everyone else do good and then also do well himself in melee combat. Typically, I'll give him the Relic Force Sword from Ritual of the Damned. I'm not going to grab the book because I can remember what it is, because I am good at Grey Knights. Blade of the Forsworn. Blade of the Forsworn, and I flavor it as the Blade of Doom Mons for Samandis, because that's his weapon. My friends and I had a narrative campaign a couple years ago, and that was Grandmaster Samandis' blade, the Blade of Doom Mons, named after a mountain on Titan. I guess that's all I have to say about Grandmasters, is that I like running them because of flavor reasons. Grandmaster and Nemesis Dreadnought is our next unit. Wow, this is going to take me a lot longer than I thought. I just realized I'm going to spend a lot of time on each unit. That's fine. Grandmaster and Nemesis Dreadnought. These guys were beasts in 8th edition. People don't play them as much nowadays in 9th. I think that has to do with a combination of how big they are, how hard they are to hide behind things, and how important troops and infantry are this edition. But yeah, Grandmaster Nemesis Dreadnoughts, awesome. Way back when, before they fact it, you could reliably get a Grandmaster Nemesis Dreadnought up to a 2-up save every turn. You'd heed the Prognosticars on him and then cast Sanctuary on him, and this used to be able to stack for some weird, screwy reasons, just with the wording wasn't consistent. If I recall, Sanctuary says you improve their invulnerable save by 1, and then Heed the Prognosticars used to say, they changed it, Heed the Prognosticars used to say add 1 to the saving throws, and so technically those don't violate that you can only have a 3-up invuln, because one of them improves the invuln and one of them adds to the roll itself. It was weird. But Grey Knight sucked in 8th edition, so I would cheese the hell out of that, and I used to regularly just throw a Grandmaster Nemesis straight on the table and he'd have a 2-up invuln for most of the game. It was awesome. Everybody loved it. Nobody had a bad time. I just still think they're really good. Having a big 12-wound model with a Strength 10, AP 3, D6 damage sword running around the table with a 3-up invuln, that's rad. Still really good. Mine only has the 1 Psycan on him. I think he does okay. He'd do better if I had a Gatling Silencer on him. I hear a lot of people saying that the hammer is objectively better. I can't get behind that -1 to hit. I think most of the time the Grandmaster's still going to hit anyway. He's re-rolling 1s, he's hitting on 3s with the hammer as opposed to 2s, but knowing me, I'm going to swing, I'm going to hit on 2s. I'm going to just swoop. Knowing me, I'm going to always roll 2s if I have a hammer. And most things just get ripped apart by the sword anyway. Strength 10, AP 3d6 damage. There's the new stratagem that I really like using on them. Overwhelming Onslaught, I think is what it's called. Cast it on the Grandmaster Nemesis Dreadnought. He gets an extra attack. He gets reroll 1s to wound and reroll 1s for damage rolls. And he just... it's great. He still wrecks house. A lot of people really discount them nowadays, but every game that I bring him, he does really, really well. Or he draws all the fire from my enemy on their first shooting phase, and then I just sort of have everybody else do what they want. So either way, he does really well. Move on to Castellan Crow. More named characters. I used to play Castellan Crow a lot just because I loved the flavor of him, like when I was first getting into the game. The fact that his sword, the Black Blade of Antweir, it doesn't have any special abilities, doesn't have any AP or strength bonuses or higher damage or anything. It's just a stick. It's just a normal, it's just a hunk of metal to him. And so he actually has a worse weapon than every other Grey Knight. But the sword contains one of the most powerful demons that the Grey Knights have ever encountered. And the demon possesses anyone that holds a sword and turns them into like an unstoppable killing machine. Because Garen Crow is so incorruptible, he's not the leader of the Purifiers, what's the word for it? Castellan is his title, but he's like the head purifier amongst the Grey Knights, and he is so incorruptible and so pure of will and spirit that he, and he alone, can hold the Black Blade of Antweir and deny its corrupting influence. And so he needs to always be holding onto it. He needs to always wield it into battle, because if he lets the sword go, if he lets anybody else touch it, then the demon will be released and the demon will possess whoever is holding it. It's so rad. Just this idea of this like incorruptible, pure warrior who is basically like taking a handicap every battle just so he doesn't let this demon win. I think he's red as hell. He sucks, unfortunately, on the table. Having no AP is really, really rough. He can do okay against large blobs of like guardsman equivalents. He's swinging 6 times in the charge. Each successful wound gets him another swing. So maybe he can do 12 wounds against a guardsman if you do really well. But even if he does do really well, Stormbolters would do the same thing. Like a Terminators squad shooting out 20 Stormbolter shots, and that's going to do as much work as... It's going to do more work than Castellan Crow swinging in melee. And he is only 80 points, so if you need a cheap HQ, he does some work there. But mostly pass. Brother Captain Stern. Pass on this one. I've never seen a reason to run him beyond a normal Brother Captain. He's got a weird rule called Strands of Fate. In each of your turns, you can choose to reroll a single failed hit or wound roll or single failed saving throw specifically for Brother Captain Stern. Seems cool, except the downside is your opponent can just reroll anything on their turn if they want. That's not worth it. That's just giving a free reroll to my opponent for... It's not a good trade-off. And his weird smite modifier is whatever. I'm going to pass him. He's stupid. And then just a Brother Captain. I have a weird relationship with Brother Captains. I think they're cool. I think that they're cheaper than Grandmasters, which is nice. You can make them beat stakes, give them some melee weapons. They go to town. I have Brother Captain Nicosiel runs around with the Doomglaive. Man, I'm forgetting my Grey Knights relics today. Runs around with the Doomglaive, and he does all right. Psychic Locus, their ability. When a friendly Grey Knights unit within 6 inches of any Brother Captains manifests the smite power, double its range. I think for the way I run my armies, that isn't as important as it is in other Grey Knights lists. For me specifically, I guess first what I always see people on the internet doing is Brother Captain, bunch of MSU squads of strikes, and the strike squads poop out a bunch of 2 damage because you're in tide of escalation, 2 damage smites 24 inches across the board, and you set up a little gun line of just smites gun at something. Seems really good, but I don't run strikes. So I don't want to surround him with Terminators because Terminator squad's expensive. I can do better things than just doing 2 damage smites a turn. But he has his uses. My Brother Captains typically touch down with my Paladin Ancients, who I usually give the Banner of Refining Flame to, and then let them do their d6 damage smite in 12 inches, which is cool. It's not nothing. It's a big investment, though, for points. It's over 200 points for that combo. They're cool. I wish that they modified Grey Knights in some other way, the Brother Captain. It would be cool if Psychic Locus rerolled 1s for psychic checks in 6 inches. That would be awesome. It'd be kind of like mirroring the Space Marines reroll 1s aura, but doing it a little bit different. I think these guys need a rework. They need a retouch. Their aura is very, very specific and only lends itself to one style of play, which is like a psychic smite gun line. And Brother Captains are supposed to be leading the force, whereas a Grandmaster is the ultimate leader of a brotherhood. The Brother Captain leads it in battle. So to me, it would make sense if the Brother Captains had the reroll 1s, or Rites of Battle, I think is what it's called for Grandmasters as well. Yeah, it's the same thing as Space Marines. For me, it would make sense if the Brother Captains had that, because they're the ones running out and leading the charge, and that would be cool, but it's not the case. I think and hope that's going to be a unit that gets reworked in our next codex, because I think they could be much more interesting. Librarian is our next. I have a Librarian in the works. I don't have any Librarians in my Grey Knights Forest. It's always seemed redundant to me, because everybody's a Psyker, so why would I bring a specified, like, super focused Psyker? Being able to cast 2 and knowing 2 powers could be really good. That's another unit that I see everyone bringing online, especially in 9th edition, with all of our fancy Ritual of the Damned powers. Dominus is the discipline. Sanctic and Dominus, not like the Ultramarines, which have Indomitus as their discipline. But yeah, I'm painting one up right now. Modified him from the Betrayal at Calth Terminator Captain. I think it'll be great, but I don't know. They seem like a very, very, very specific unit, and I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. It's one of those units that I've never really played around with. Casting 2 powers is good. Grandmasters can cast 2 powers. But one of them has to be Smite with a Grandmaster, so you never know. But then you can get, I don't know, you can get so many psychic powers everywhere across the board with Grey Knights. Again, this is one of those units that I'm going to have to test it out. Everybody on the internet says they're great, so I'm going to trust them for now. We'll try it out, and we'll see how it happens. Tech Marine. Tech Marines are fun. I have one. He's cool. I've built him to specifically help out one of my Land Raiders. And he's thrown a couple of wounds on to Dreadnoughts or Land Raider. I like him. He giving him Etheric Conduit, the relic for Tech Marines, allowing him to heal 2d3 as opposed to 1d3. It's pretty cool. Often, when my opponents focus on one of my vehicles, they focus it down and it's gone, and so I don't have a lot of time. I have once had the Tech Marine follow around my Grandmaster Nemesis Dreadnought, and then the Grandmaster has 3-up invuln, and so the Tech Marine would heal him up every turn, every few wounds he lost. It was really cool. It kept him pretty much indestructible. However, because of the way Lookout Sir works, my opponent was able to just target the Tech Marine, who does not have an invuln, and snipe him down. So I didn't really have a lot to defend him with at that point, because the Grandmaster, despite him being in a vehicle, can't defend the Tech Marine. Is that true? I'll have to look up the current wording. I'll put a little thing on the screen that says whether or not I'm right or stupid.
I was totally wrong.
a Grandmaster Nemesis Dreadnought is a friendly unit that contains one or more vehicles or monsters with wounds characteristic 10 or more. So GMNDK can totally activate Lookout, sir, for the Tech Marine. Interesting. Chaplain. I like Chaplains. Still can't figure out where they fit into my niche, but it's like having a whole extra suite of psychic powers that my opponent can't deny and can only happen at the beginning of the battle round. But there's some really fun stuff that they can do. Giving a 5-up field no pain against mortal wounds has been really helpful against Thousand Suns. Re-rolling damage rolls for weapons has been really good with my Psychic Dreadnoughts just shooting through walls with las cannons. I think Chaplains have a lot of utility. I think they really take some thinking and purpose to figure out exactly what they're doing in your list. I don't know that I figured out exactly what I want my Chaplains to be doing, and it's probably because I haven't named my Chaplain yet. I bet once I name him, he'll figure it out. But I think they're rad, and for whatever reason, my Chaplain in particular is insanely lucky. If you go back and look at some of my battle reports, there might be some of the written ones that I have. I'm going to send a link to my blog, by the way, where I have some written battle reports if ever you want to just have a nice chill coffee and read through some rambling about me fighting Lamenters or Harlequins. But my Chaplain has survived some things that he shouldn't survive. And I know that's not really indicative of the quality of a model, but I like to think there's a little bit of divine animus within these little pieces of plastic that we have, and some of them are just better than the others by the shade of their sheer being. I think the Chaplain's one of them. I should really name him. Brotherhood Champion. Why is this an HQ when the company champion is Space Marines Elite Choice? I don't know what to do with that model. I think it's really cool. I think having a dedicated swordsman is rad. I don't know why he doesn't have Deep Strike built into him latently. Strike Squad has that. Why didn't they give it to him? Does he have to take the bus while everybody teleports out into the battlefield? It doesn't make any sense. The fact that he's an HQ takes up a valuable slot. He should be an Elite's choice. And the way that they changed Perfect Warrior back in 2019's Spring FAQ, I think, his Blade Shield stance, because in the fight phase for the Brotherhood Champion, you can choose either the Sword Strike stance or the Blade Shield stance. Sword Strike stance adds 1 to wounds, Blade Shield stance adds 1 to saves. Used to be that affected invulns, so you could get him to a 3-up invuln with that. Or, if you were cheeky and you cast Sanctuary on him, you could get him to a 2-up invuln. Another way to get that. It would only be in melee, but it was really cool. They changed that so the Blade Shield stance doesn't add to invuln saves. Which makes it almost useless. He has a 4-up invuln and a 2-up save. I don't know whenever you'd want to add 1 to his saves, unless you're fighting something specifically with an AP1 melee weapon, which, off the top of my head, I can't think of. Maybe a Force Staff from a Librarian or something. But even then, I'd rather wound the guy. I don't know where he fits now. I think he's a cool model. I have a fun one that I kit mashed from Primaris. He's another one that's hopefully going to be retouched. Terminator squads. We're into troops. Wow, that took long to go through the HQs. But we've got a lot of HQs. Terminator squads. Terminator squads are the best. Terminator squads are really, really hard to kill, especially with Tide of Shadows. They just shit out bullets, which is great. And then they got force weapons, so on melee, anything they touch dies. I love Terminator squads. The fact that we have such durable troops to hold objectives, to rush up the board, to harass the enemy, to deny psychic powers. These guys are awesome, and I love Terminators, and I will run Terminators in every game that I ever play until the day I die. Grey Knight Terminator Squad, best unit, entire game. Next. Strike Squads. 2 things about these guys. It's kind of an old sculpt. So they're that big. So they look tiny on the tabletop. They just don't look imposing compared to every faction they face. I think they're just a little bit taller than Guardsmen. Valencia, I'll take a picture of it. Valencia, my Inquisitor, is taller than the Strike Marine which looks dumb because she's just a lady, and this is a 7.5-foot ancient 600-pound warrior, supposedly. That's something that can be modified, though. I have some power armored Marines that I've put on Deathwatch legs that helps them look a lot better. Thank you to someone in the Grey Knights forums with Bolter and Chainsword for recommending that. But I've seen some fine Primaris conversions as well. The real thing, and this will change in the future, the real thing, they are 3-up save, no invuln, and 1 wound. I can't stand the thought of an errant lasgun that I just didn't make a single 3-up save on, tearing down like an ancient son of Titan, a psychic warrior who has gone through unimaginable trials to arrive where he is, and I can't get past that. So even if they are cost efficient, even if you get more bolter shots and more psychic powers for their price, and they're maybe like half the price, they're maybe like 3/5 the price of a Terminator squad, I just can't stomach the idea of a Grey Knight dying to a haphazard roll. The Terminators, if you screw it up, first off, they have a 2-up save, so it's much harder to screw up. They have 2 wounds, so they can suffer an accident and be fine. Pass on strike squads until we get up to 2 wounds, then maybe we'll be better. And the Apothecary is next. Big fan of this model. Super cheap, hits on 2s in combat, and still as an invuln, still Terminator save. I think it's great. I think he's an excellent value for the points he costs. Throw a hammer on him, he's still hitting on 3s. He's healing himself every turn, or picking up Paladin sometimes. And yeah, the infamous deep striking assassin with all of the various shenanigans from Ritual of the Damned. I really rate them. I think they're great. Nothing really more to be said there. Brotherhood Ancient. I don't know why this model exists. It's exactly the same points cost as the Paladin Ancient, and is worse. It just has a worse ballistic skill, worse weapon skill, and 1 less attack. I don't know why it's there. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. So we'll talk about Paladin Ancients when we get to them. Paladin Squad. These guys, everybody knows how good they are. Paladins kick a ton of ass. I'm interested to see how these guys upgrade when we get our new codex, because they got to do something. Our Terminators are going to obviously go up to 3 wounds like Space Marine Terminators. It would be insane if they didn't. I'm interested to see how the Paladin squad is improved, what they do to really make them like stand out from Terminator squads. Paladins are super durable. They have a lot of stratagem support with the various stratagems from Ritual of the Damned, a couple from this book, but man, they are survivable. You get Sanctuary off on them. You're sitting in Tide of Shadows. You got Transhuman Physiology sometimes. You've got, what's the one that reduces damage to Terminators by 1? Redoubtable Defense. That's it. And then the Psychic Power that gives us, I can't remember any Grey Knight names today. The Psychic Power that gives us -1 to being wounded. This is embarrassing for me. I can do it. Nope. I know it's there. Armored Resilience. That's what it is. That's what it was. I knew it was there. It was in my brain somewhere. I've usually got my cards. But yeah, Paladin squads, super durable. The biggest issue with them, I believe, is that they just eat command points for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You want to place them where they need to be. Also, this is kind of a thing about Grey Knights in total that I want to touch on. Mobility can either be really simple for us, or it can be incredibly difficult. Gate of Infinity is fantastic for getting where you need to. But if you don't have anybody that knows Gate of Infinity around a unit that you need to get somewhere, such as the Paladins. If I want to keep them alive, so I give them Sanctuary, and then the Terminator squad near them that get Infinity dies, suddenly my Paladins move 5 inches. They're not getting anywhere. They can do a lot of shots at 24 inches with their Stormbolters, but really where they do damage is in melee. And if they don't have Get Infinity on themselves and there's nobody around to cast it, they're just stuck. Which is not to like tell people how to beat my Paladins, but that's what to do. I'm most of the time bringing Sanctuary on them and just trusting somebody else around them to teleport them. So targeting Grey Knights that get Infinity is really good, because then that screws us out of most of our mobility. They're excellent though. Any competitive list I make, I bring a squad of 10 Paladins. I will give most of them the halberds, usually 7 of them the halberds. I'll give the Paragon the hammer, just to like deal with vehicles and big tough monsters. And he hits on 2s, so the hammer is hitting on 3s like the rest of the squad. And then I will give 2 warding staves, usually, into that, because if they get Sanctuary off them especially, they are very survivable in melee. I love these guys. Again, I will take them in any competitive list I ever make. What else do we got for elites? The Paladin Ancient. He's just 1 page away. Why don't we put... They should have put him next to the Brotherhood Ancient and then lead that into the Paladins. I guess I get why they put the Paladins first. Anyway. Ancients are cool. Just... It's a lot of points for what you're trying to get out of them, and then more often than not, they don't make the charge in with your Paladins, your Terminator squads, or whatever, and you end up having to trail a model back so they're within his 6-inch aura that gives everybody an additional attack. And then if you're trailing the Terminators back, am I explaining this right? He has an aura that gives a 6-inch +1 to attack, which is great. But if he doesn't make the charge, and then let's say you get a squad of 5 Terminators forward, you have to pull a few Terminators back so they stay within his 6-inch bubble, in which case you're already losing some attacks because you're pulling guys out of combat. It's interesting. It's he's rough. I want him... I give him the banner sometimes to get that D6 damage smite, which is great, especially before Ritual of the Damned, because... That was one of our only really good relics. I used to take that exclusively. But now we have such relics as the Sanctic Shard or the Augurium Scrolls, and those are really good, and it's hard to pass those up for a D6 Smite. D6 Smite is great, but unless you have the Brother Captain there, it's only hitting at 6 inches, and so again, out of Deep Strike, he's not doing anything. It's a tough sell. I think he does something. Most of my videos on this channel, he hasn't. And that's been disappointing, to say the least. I've had a couple of people criticize my choices to bring him in lists, but he looks rad. There's something really cool about just a guy having a standard on the battlefield and like really representing the Brotherhood. I'll keep bringing him in matches because I think there's something there, especially pairing with the relic, but again, then I'm paying extra CP for those relics, and I don't know if it's worth it at that point. One thing to note, the Banner of Finding Flames ability, unless I'm mistaken, replaces Smite. Let me just confirm that before I continue this thread, because that would be embarrassing if I was wrong. The Banner of Finding Flame, there it is, Banner of Finding Flame. Banner of Finding Flame is a sacred banner. A model equipped with this banner loses the Rites of Banishment ability. So specifically, Tide of Escalation specifies that units with the Rites of Banishment ability get +1 to their damage. So unfortunately, the Banner of Finding Flame on the Ancient is not going to do a d6 +1 damage in Tide of Escalation. He's just going to do a d6. Sometimes people forget that, and then people also think that that benefits Purifiers, who are next on our list. Crucial discovery I made while making this video and looking at data sheets. Also a sad discovery. The Paladin Ancient's banner gives +1 leadership to units within 6 inches, but he only gives +1 attacks to models within 6 inches, so I cannot trail units back to him to give them a bonus, which sucks. I don't know if I'm going to take him anymore. We'll find out. We'll see. But that shifts his priority in my mind. And sucks. Oh well. Purifiers are really interesting. They're just strike squads, basically. They can take an extra special weapon in 5 men. What's most interesting about them, as everybody knows, Purifying Flame. When this unit manifests the Smite psychic power, it only has a range of 3 inches, but inflicts d6 mortal wounds. Rad! More mortal wounds are excellent. The kicker is that d3. The 3 inches. That's far too close. Even Dynamic Insertion's not going to get it there. And if you have a brother captain who helps them out, he is doubling Smite ranges and specifies Smite, not Rites of Banishment, but he gets it up to 6 inches, so even on a deep strike, these guys can't do much. Maybe if you had a couple of them moving up the field with a brother captain, you could do it at 6 inches, but that's a lot of points to invest for something like that. If it had a longer range, or if the Purifiers had more than 1 wound and just more than just a 3-up save, you invest a lot of points into these guys, throwing them upfield, hoping to hit them close enough to smite. By the time you're within 3 inches, you are probably in combat. And you've probably lost a lot of guys. You might even be dead already. I just want them to. I want them to be good, really bad. I've never run them, to be fair, except I have a few that I painted up that I used early on in my Warhammer career, but I haven't played them since I've been playing Grey Knights seriously. Power Armor's not doing it for me. They need some sort of boost. They need an additional wound. And that's really it. Because 5 fragile wounds at T4 and a 3-up save, no invuln for Smite nuke that's only 3 inches, it's not going to happen. I wanted to. That'd be really cool. Or if we had that Black Templar stratagem that lets us deploy after a Land Raider moved. There's some cool stuff they could do. But as many people will tell you, this codex suffers from being really, really old, and the first codex of 8th edition after Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, and Death Guard. So it has a lot of really old rules, and they hadn't ironed out 8th edition yet, I don't think, before they made this. Then we got Dreadnoughts. Our Dreadnoughts are in a weird spot right now. Space Marine Dreadnoughts got really good, I believe. But our Dreadnoughts didn't get those upgrades. They consider us separate units. If you check the Grey Knights FAQ, we still have all the old Dreadnought rules. Dreadnoughts, I think, are still really good. I still think there's a lot of they can do a lot of damage. They're fairly survivable even without their invuln. T7 is good, 8 wounds is good, but man, when we end up getting that, what's it called? Duty Eternal? Duty Eternal, yeah, that reduces all damage taken by 1. That's going to be excellent. I'm very excited for that. Venerable Dreadnoughts, I'm just going to keep moving with that because it's in the same vein as it. Flat upgrade over the Dreadnought, just hits on 2s and then has a 6-up shrug, feel no pain. Whatever your terminology is for it. On 6s, they ignore runes. Super rad. I love them. Especially with kitting them out with the las cannon and the missile launcher. Time-honored tactic. Put your Dreadnought in a quarter, give him astral aim, and then just let him shoot across anything, ignoring cover and shooting wherever he likes for the entire game. Until somebody focuses him down, but they have to find him because he can shoot through terrain. Still works in 9th edition. It's still really solid. He's been my go-to anti-vehicle guy. When he whiffs, it sucks. But there are a couple things like I talked about earlier with the Chaplain. You can use one of the litanies. I forget which one it's called. This is for me too. I'm also learning litany of words of power. Let's see, re-roll the dice when determining the damage inflicted. So on a double Laskin and missile launcher Dreadnought, that's awesome. He sits in the corner. Maybe you have your Chaplain casting, Empyrean Domination or something to get you command points every turn, and he just sits there, and then you have your Dreadnought sitting next to him, casting Astral Aim on himself and firing up the battlefield. It's a nice little, they can sit there and hang out and do their thing the whole game, and they're going to be beneficial. They're going to be getting you command points, they're going to be getting you hopefully vehicle kills. The problem being, again, and you'll notice a lot with Grey Knights units, that is a big points investment. I still think Venerable Dreadnoughts are good. I think they're great. And the points increase over a regular Dreadnought is not even a question. Like, do it, especially now that they don't lose ballistic skill from moving and firing. Yeah. Brief aside, I used to, back before Legends was a thing, I used to put the double twin autocannons on my Venerable Dreadnoughts and hide them away, and they just shoot 8 autocannon shots and just tear apart Eldar jet bikes, and I miss that. I almost took that to LVO, in fact, this last year, but then he got Legends away, and I had to change my list. Next, Servitors. Why do they exist? Why are they in a codex? Why do they do anything? Servitors are real, I guess. Moving on. They're not even great objective holders because they get shot off the board. Interceptor squads. I am slowly falling in love with Interceptor squads. And I know they're power armored Grey Knights, so feels weird. But that insane amount of mobility that the Interceptor squads have is fantastic. It's like a pseudo-fly 12 inches. They can't move horizontally. They can go through objects, but they can't, or what is this direction? Vertically. Laterally, horizontally, vertically. Yes, they can't move vertically with that. They still have to travel normally. But 12 inches is great. They can ignore intervening terrain and models, and they can redeploy once per turn. Read Deep Strike. I've only played one game with them. It was a squad of 5. I've got 5 more that I'm going to paint tonight, but I think they're really rad. Again, too squishy, but if anybody watched my Thousand Suns game recently, they performed admirably and made all of their saves somehow, and these 5 wounds worth of dudes somehow survived much longer than they had any right to, and endeared themselves to me. I'm going to fight Eldar in the next couple of days, and we'll see how they do there as well. I think they're going to be great. I think we're going to have a great relationship, me and Interceptors. Especially, again, the mobility they have is incredible. It's just a thing that doesn't exist elsewhere in the Codex. Maybe Rhinos? Maybe Flyers? Ugh. We need more options. Interceptor squads. I like them. I like them. And they fly in the face of my dislike of power armor. Speaking of disliking power armor, Purgation Squad. Silencers and side cannons aren't good enough to warrant putting them on such fragile bodies. Hot take. You're going to move these guys up the field, or teleport them, or deep strike them, or whatever. And they don't have latent deep strike. Huh, that sucks. They don't have teleport strike. Normal strike squad does. And the Purgation Squad doesn't. Interesting. Another reason not to take them. They suffer the penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, even though in the fluff, psi cannons have like gravity-like defiers built into them, so that they can move around and not worry about having to remain stationary. These big, heavy psychic guns, based off of the Land Raider Banishers stats, psi cannons are going to get better. 2 damage, like heavy bolters. Maybe I'll run them at that point, but I want to take a moment to talk about silencers as well, and maybe some of my fellow Grey Knights fans can help me out with this. I don't understand the point of a silencer. It's D3 damage, so my immediate thought is anti-vehicle or anti-monster. But it's strength 4 and AP 0, so my next thought is, well, that must be an anti-infantry weapon. But any infantry that falls to strength 4, AP 0 is not going to have more than 1 wound, so why does the D3... I understand that firing off these silencers in just heavy volumes, maybe Purgation Squads fill that role. Naturally, some of the wounds are going to get through, but any sort of heavy armor, Leman Russes, Land Raiders, even like Thousand Suns basic troops are just going to shrug that off. They're not going to care. I have never understood what the silencer's role is supposed to be, and I would love to hear thoughts on what people have for it. It's the reason that I haven't outfitted any of my Terminator squads with them or my Paladin squads. I know that that's a common thing also, to put like 4 silencers onto the Paladin squads. I can't see a reason for spending those points. I'd rather have another Terminator or maybe a couple of Nemesis Demon Hammers somewhere. It just, I can't see what they do that Stormbolters don't do just as well, especially since it's 24 inches at 4 shots. So is a Stormbolter. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy. We'll find out. Wait, is silencer? The silencer might be 6 shots. If that's the case, I mean, I guess it throws out a few more. Silencer is, again, this is how rarely I've used them, because silencer is 6 shots. Throws out a few more, but I still don't think it's worth the points. Especially since you're getting the penalty for moving and firing. Maybe someone convinced me of that. Maybe the Interceptors that I'm making will do so well that they'll make me switch to Power Armored Grey Knights entirely. And maybe when we get 2 wounds, it'll do the same thing. What do we got next? Heavy Support. Heavy Support's got a lot of fun choices. Nemesis Dreadnoughts are rad. I used to hate this model because it looks dumb. That's, I mean, like, no beating around that bush. It's a silly design. Somebody watched Aliens and was like, man, what about that? But what if Ripley had a power armor suit while she was in there? They're great. I love them. They're big, they hit hard, they can take a lot of small arms fire and survive it. They crumble to most melee dedicated units and like anti-tank fire, but they have to be dealt with. They put out a lot of shots considering, and in melee they are monsters. I don't think you can go wrong with the fists, the swords, or the hammer. The hammer is only hitting on 4s, and that sucks, but the fists are an often overlooked weapon. They're still AP3, just like the sword. D3 damage, so you're not hitting for as much, but if you're going to like heavy infantry or something like Terminators, they're going to tear through them just the same. And it's strength times 2, so it's even more strength than the sword. So, and you get an extra attack for having it. And then if you throw Overwhelming Onslaught. Dreadnought stratagem called Overwhelming Assault is what it's called. If you throw Overwhelming Assault on him, he's getting what it said. 4 base, +1 for charging, +1 for the fists, and then +1 for Overwhelming Assault. He's getting 7 attacks with the fists. I really rate the fists. And the fact that they're cheaper, 5 points or whatever, it's not much, but it helps us something. Typically, if I'm not sure how I'm going to be deploying my army right off the bat, I'm going to give them a Dreadnought teleporter and pay the 10 points for each of my Dreadnoughts that I'm running, including the Grandmasters. Especially if I go into like a tournament setting, I'm happy to spend that 10 points on flexibility. So if I want them on the field, I'll just have 8 those 10 points, and that's fine. But if I end up needing to deep strike them, I'd rather have that option than not, because you can't use the teleportarium stratagem, I think is what it's called, on the Dreadnoughts, because this is something that I was mistaking for years. Dreadnoughts are not Dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts are not Dreadnoughts, and thus can't ride in Storm Ravens, which I used to think they did way back when. Honestly, really cool units, and the kit is pliable enough you can pose them well, or you can kit bash them with a Redemptor like I did, and I'll do a video on that sometime, how I did that. I think they're great. I think that they have a big board presence, and especially in Tide of Shadows, they get the -1 for being shot at, an additional 1 to cover. I think they're great. And I can't really say much more about them other than I think they're great. Land Raider. Ugh, I don't know. Land Raider is one of those units that I just think are really, really cool. And classic. Like, seeing the big silver box roll at the field covered in guns. Like, that's really rad. They get ripped apart by anything anti-tank, which is weird because they got that 2-up save and they got that 8 toughness. They're pretty hardy. They start to fall apart. Of the various Land Raider patterns, I think the Crusader is the most useful. Just the sheer amount of shots it can put out tears through infantry. Not that Grey Knights are hurting for infantry shredding capabilities. We have Stormbolters everywhere. But one fun trick that we can do as Grey Knights is teleporting anything with the Grey Knights keyword. So like a Land Raider. So you can teleport a Crusader upfield to wherever you want, and be within rapid fire range of maybe a giant blob of, I don't know, demons or guard or whatever those annoying AdMech guys are called. Anyway, anything that just falls to bolt or fire, the Land Raider can just shred it, which is nice. I mean, being able to teleport Land Raiders. Plus, if somebody charges into a Land Raider and they tag it and they think they're going to hold it there for a while, you can just have one of your boys snap its fingers and then throw it across the field and have it deal with whatever its ideal target is. I've never actually run a Land Raider with the las cannons, so I can't speak to it. But I've run Redeemers, I've run Crusaders. I think they're both cool. The Redeemer's a little swingy with its D6 Flamestorm cannons, but it's cool. It's a big tank that shoots fire. I don't want that. Crusader, I think, is definitely the best of the three, though. Razorback. There was a time in 8th edition that Razorbacks were our best heavy weapons platform. They might still be, but I don't think having a heavy weapons platform is as essential nowadays as it was before. I think our infantry game is strong, and I think that we can just leverage that. But yeah, Razorbacks, put the las cannon on there, see what it does. It's not psychic, though, which sucks, so it doesn't benefit from tides, and it doesn't have any psychic powers, obviously. Rhino, I don't use power armor, so I'm not going to need that. The Stormhawk Interceptor. Our rules for the Stormhawk Interceptor are two books out of date, because I remember when the Space Marines Codex number 2 came out, I was wondering if we were going to get an update to the Infernum Halo launcher. We didn't. Ours still has the weird rule of you can reroll save rolls of 1. Fun, but why? And then the new Space Marine Codex came out and changed its whole deal again, even all of its weapons. And I thought we were going to get an update to that, and we didn't. So we just have a really out-of-date data sheet with this. Really good against Harlequins. That's all I can say about that. They just tear them apart. Flyers are really vulnerable, just because they can't benefit from obscuring terrain. What you can do, you can do some weird janky stuff with Edict Imperator. Start with your flyer off the field, turn 2 or whatever, drop them in, and then during the psychic phase, Edict Imperator, have him shoot, have him fly off the table again, and she'll never get shot at. And then bring him back next turn. You only get 2 or 3 rounds of shooting in the game, depending on when you bring him back. But those rounds of shooting are guaranteed, and you're not going to have any sort of... you're not going to lose a flyer. I don't know if it's worth all the points the flyers cost, especially the Storm Raven. Every time I want to bring a Storm Raven, God, I could bring another squad of Paladins almost for it. Or for a couple points more, I could bring a Knight. Storm Raven's really cool, and I want it to do its thing, but it just gets shot apart. They just get shot apart, and then you're just sad, and all your guys fall out, and then you're just like, oh, I guess we'll just run on the field now, or maybe teleport once. It's not the best. Storm Talon Gunship. I've always been tempted to make one of these. I kind of like the dumb little look that they have. But, again, the flyer problem. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think flyers just don't really have much of a place. That brings us to the end of the book. That's all of the Grey Knights units and what I think of all of them. Basically, I am a big fan of Terminators. Power armor, not so much. I wish flyers were better. And I don't like running named characters. That's my thing. Yeah, if you have any thoughts on any of this, always love talking about Grey Knight theory crafting. If you want to convince me that silencers are good, I would love to hear an argument for that, because I just don't see it. And maybe that's just my dumb brain not getting it, but I just don't see how silencers are good. I think they need some sort of change. AP, something, maybe ignoring the heavy penalty, but it's just not worth sacrificing a Stormbolter and then having to pay more points on top of it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you like listening to my weird thoughts. Talk to you later.